Welcome to AM Muscle Maintenance with In Shape Fitness. I am Coach Kim, and this podcast is called From the Bed to the Shower. It is a workout podcast. It's going to take about 15 minutes. The exercises that we're going to do together and my talking points are equipment free, with the one exception of my bragging that I have a 91-year-old client that uses a resistance band when he does this sequence with me. And in fact, he's the inspiration for this sequence because we do a lot of his exercises before we do a couple of moves on his feet. We do tend to spend a great deal of the time in his bed because he wants to be able to get it done before he gets up and heads out, ironically, to his office every day, which he still does every day at 91 years old. So this routine is a really basic regimen for the stimulation of your body parts. As you wake up, maybe you hit the snooze button once or twice in the morning, or maybe you don't and you are super excited to jump out of bed every day. But either way, after sleeping for 6 to 8 hours, hopefully you get at least 6 hours of sleep at night. But when you do wake up, your body has been dormant for an extended period of time. The cells need to be stimulated in order to activate and start doing their jobs, in order to start moving fluids around, in order to start oxygenating your blood and therefore pumping the nutrients and the fluids into your muscles, into your ligaments and tendons, so that you can move freely and with energy throughout your day. Now, this is not an exercise regimen that is going to prepare your body for bikini season. Very little of the work that I do does. I do help people sometimes with more intensive training. In fact, I am a marathon running coach and have worked for years with people that are preparing to run a marathon or a long race of some sort, mostly as kind of like a bucket list item, but they train, and this is that's a really great way to sort of morph into from a sedentary existence into a really active lifestyle. And obviously weight loss and developing the muscle mass and bone mass that you need in order to live that kind of active life is a really big part of those kinds of regimens. This regimen, from the bed to the shower, is something, however, that everyone should do. Even people that want to bucket list a marathon, or maybe a long bike or a long hike, or long bike ride or a hike, or some other activity that involves physical fitness, your everyday stimulation is still critical. We know that even people that are 8-minute mile runners, or people that can go out and bike for 50 miles tend to end up with lots of chronic injuries. And the reason for that is because we tend, as a society, very modern society, where we spend a lot of our time sitting at a desk with a computer or some other sort of device, that we go from the lying down position into a seated position, and then we basically stay there all day. You don't want to do that without stimulating your body in the morning. So this routine, as I said before, started with my 91-year-old client who wanted to exercise in his bed. And for that reason, we're going to do our postural systems check lying down on the floor or on your bed. Or if you're not able to do any of the work, just think about what you can be doing as you sit there and think about these exercises. The first move is stimulation of the pelvis and your hips and your butt a little bit. And we're starting on our backs with our knees bent, feet on the floor, lying with your gaze at your ceiling, and just taking a couple of deep breaths. Now your spine is in line here. In fact, lying down on the floor is an anatomically neutral way to hold your body in a static position. If you have lower back problems, obviously you need to make sure that you're stable through your back, and that's why you bend your knees and put your feet flat on the floor. Make sure that your hips, your knees, and your ankles make a straight line, right? So you don't want your feet too close together, you don't want your feet too far apart, and you don't want your toes turned out. You want your feet straight. So the first move, and bear in mind, this has been a bit of we've worked on the naming of the moves in this exercise regimen over the years. They're not unusual moves, but we did name them funny names because it's my 91-year-old client, and this is fun for us. So we call this first move Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And what we do, you can put your hands up underneath your lower back for stability if you need to, and then you elevate your feet. You're looking up at your ceiling. As I said before, you've taken a couple of deep breaths through the postural systems check, and now your feet are elevated such that your legs are bent at 90 degrees. So you have a 90-degree angle at your knees and a 90-degree angle at your waist, your hips rather. So you should feel your lower abdominal muscles sort of activated, contracted a little bit. Now, the only thing that you do for Fred Astaire is your right leg does not move first. You're just going to move the left leg. And all you do is, hinging at your hip, tap the left foot onto the bed or floor, and then lift the foot back up off the bed to starting position, return to starting position. So tap, lift, nice and slow. You don't want to go too fast. And you should feel the heat elevating in your left hip, top of your thigh. Count to 10, do 10 of them only, and then do the same but switch sides. So now your left foot is stable, your left foot is in the air, the right angle is at your hip and at your knees, and you're tapping the right foot down onto the bed or the floor. Now, one thing that I do after the 10 and the 10 sometimes is an alternating pattern where you go left, right, left, right, left, right. Okay. So the other thing that you can do to make this a little more challenging, if you have one handy, is use a resistance band around your knees, around the bottom of your quads, to add a little resistance if you're interested in that. But I don't always do that. In fact, I generally do not. But it is something that you can do if you're interested, especially if you're interested in trying to develop an everyday regimen for your morning routine that will help bolster your stability as you do things like run, maybe train to run a 5K or 10K or a half marathon or marathon, or bicycle or even swim or hike. Having that everyday strength in the smaller muscles is something that really does help you proceed through other recreational activities without pain and anguish. Now you're going to move to the Ginger Rogers part of this sort of pair of exercises. And the movement is, again, isolating. The right leg is going to stay stable in the air, same starting position. So your foot is elevated, both feet are elevated, and your hands are underneath your lower back if you need to stabilize your lower back. Then you're going to pulse the knee towards the chest 10 times with the left foot, left knee. Again, 10 on the left, 10 on the right. And move slowly. Keep your lower tummy muscles activated and make sure that your gaze remains straight up. You want to keep your head in the neutral position. And if you care to, you can also do that alternating pattern at the end. Excellent. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is a simple bicycle crunch, though with the bicycle crunch for my 91-year-old client. And if you don't have strong tummy muscles, feel free to do this as well. I don't have him lift his head and his chest for the upper body part of the bicycle crunch. We just do the lower body pedaling motion, and he calls it Tour de France. So we go from Fred Astaire to Ginger Rogers to the Tour de France. And we have such fun naming exercises. Wait until you hear the next one. Okay, so the Tour de France, and again, you're going to go slowly because you want to make sure that you are controlling your body parts. You are straightening one leg and bending the knee of the other leg and alternating that pattern. So it's obviously very related to the Fred and Ginger hip move. You're going to feel your hip flexors activating. You're going to be working your butt a little bit. And obviously you are stabilizing through your pelvis and your lower tummy muscles. Now, 2 more exercises in this same starting position. The next one is called the wah-wah. And the wah-wah is an exercise where we are going to activate the lateral part of your legs. So you're going to start with that same position where you're elevating your legs at 90 degrees, both at your hips and at your knees. And then you're going to open your legs out wide and then close them back to the starting position. And open and close for a count of 10. This is called the wah-wah because my 91-year-old client named it that after the flying motion, the wings flapping of geese and the sound that they make, Canadian geese. And I think that refers to a town in Canada. But we call it the wah-wah. So just to repeat so that you have this sense of what each of the exercises are as we move forward, it goes from Fred Astaire to Ginger Rogers to the Tour de France to the wah-wah. And the last move in this position, and then we're going to do a couple of tummy muscle exercises, is the what we call the wiggle waggle. It's sort of like the windshield wiper. So again, you start with your knees bent, your feet are in the air, your hands can be underneath your lower back for support, and you drop both knees down to one side, but you keep your shoulders flat. So you're rotating the torso, rotating the bottom of your torso, and then you use the strength of your lower tummy muscles to lift up back to the starting position and go from side to side, again for a count of 10. Okay, now we're going to do an exercise that you would just know as a basic crunch, but we call it a grapnel, kind of like a piece of construction equipment that clasps something on the ground and then scoops it up. That is what you do, but I want to caution you to think about, now your feet are on the floor or your feet are on the bed and your hands are beside your body. And what you're going to do is you're going to pretend that someone has wrapped a string around your sternum. You're going to maintain a gaze at your ceiling because you want to lift up through your chest and keep your head in the neutral position, but clasp your knees as you lift up. Pause for a fraction of a second and then control your body moving back to the lying down position. Exhale as you lift up and clasp. Inhale as you return to your starting position. All right. Very, very good. So 10 grapnels. And then we do a pretzel. And a pretzel is to cross one leg over the other with your knees bent again, and then bring both elbows behind your body. And this is a crossover crunch. It is a really basic lift of the upper body, and again, think about that string, potential, that sort of figurative string wrapped around your sternum so that you lift up through your chest as opposed to pulling on your head, which you do not want to do. Remember, with the postural systems check, your head should be positioned so that your shoulders and your ears are lined up with one another. When you pull on your head and your head is forward, your neck is strained because you are craning your head to try and move the body forward. And that forces your body to, it does lift you, but you're not really employing the right muscle groups, targeting the right muscle groups here. So you do 10 on each side. That's the pretzel crunch. And now we're going to turn over and hold a plank. And get this, true story. I just left this guy, 91 years old. He holds a 30-second plank. Not only that, he has an ankle issue with one of his feet. So he can't use the balls of his feet to hold his body up in the plank. So he has to do what we call a mermaid plank, which is when you support your lower body with your feet on the top of your feet. So you're kind of pointing your toes and you don't have that grip. It's a little more challenging than the standard position of your feet for a plank on the balls of your feet. So in any case, holding a plank for 30 seconds every day is a really positive way to activate all of the muscle layers in your rib cage area. That also, and this is something that people in my business don't really talk about because it's more, sort of medical and health related, science related. It's not muscle bound, but your heart is made of muscle. Your digestive system is the soft tissues that make up your vital organs are constructed with tissues that are activated through exercise and supported through the strength of your trunk and the prevention of excess fluid and tissues that accumulate when you do not move at all, when you do not exercise at all. So the plank is a really great way to stimulate the just general trunk area, and that helps maintain really good support for your heart, for your lungs, for your liver, and the rest of your vital organs. Now, just a couple more minutes, and I am going to let you go because I did want to keep this pretty short today. The one thing that I always do next is take the plank and then shift the body into a child's pose. And I am not kidding when I tell you that pretty much every sort of, fitness naming convention that has been taught to me through my multiple certifications over the years is completely thrown out the window with this particular person, this 91-year-old client who renames pretty much everything. So we don't call the child's pose the child's pose. It's the hedgehog. So if you ever hear me talk about getting into the hedgehog, now you know what that means. It's sitting onto your heels and constricting your hip flexors so that you are tightening or compressing rather your hip flexors, and then laying your torso, draping it, if you will, over your quads so that you can properly stretch out your spine as well as your shoulders when you walk your fingers as far away from your body as possible. Now, I would like it if you are on the floor or you can get to the floor to finish with some downward dog squats and downward dog pose sort of intervals. So like 10 seconds in downward dog to 10 downward dog squats helps also elevate your heart rate a little bit before you head off to your showers. So those are the exercises. I'm going to just say them one more time so that you have them. And then, of course, you can listen to this podcast whenever you like. But if you're interested in just having the sequence, it doesn't take very long. And you can tailor the way that you move through the sequence to last anywhere really between 5 minutes and 15 minutes, depending on how quickly you move from exercise to exercise. But we have Fred and Ginger, a couple of deep breaths in supine position, and then Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and then the Tour de France, the wah wah, the wiggle waggle, and then the grapnel, the basic crunch, the pretzel crunch, and then over to the flipping the body over into a plank, and then into downward dog, as well as then downward dog squats for a little bit of a heart rate boost before you get going. I'm Coach Kim from In Shape Fitness, and I will see you again very soon. If you have any questions, please get in touch with my team here at bodybyInshape.com or through the comments here on the podcast blast. Have a great day.